You're listening to the Fezcast, produced on behalf of the Saracen Supporters Association and featuring the independent thoughts, rants and rambles of Saracens fans and special guests. If you'd like your opinion to be heard on the show, you can find the Fezcast on Facebook or Fezcast_SSA on Instagram and whatever Twitter is known as these days. But for now, enjoy this week's show.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of season 4 of the Fezcast. I haven't not worked out what the number is yet. I mean, it'll come in about 8 weeks' time, I think, Barry. But yeah, one half of Waldorf and the other half Stadler. We're with you today to discuss the last weekend's rugby. Hartpury at the StoneX, some World Cup stuff, which we will try not to be late getting to. I think you'll know what one of the talking points in there will be. And then we'll have a look forward to Exeter. But how you doing, Barry? You all good?
Yeah, all good, thanks. Looking forward to the start of the season proper, as it were, and still just about enjoying the World Cup.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll do that sort of like in order. So we'll do Hartpury, which I wasn't at and I haven't seen too much about. So I'm relying on you to be able to give us the lowdown on what happened there. Then we'll talk World Cup, and then we'll have a look forward to Chiefs and see what might happen there. So, let's start off with the Hartpury game, Barry, because I followed it on Twitter. I was watching the World Cup stuff that was going on, and a fantastic weekend. Well, 4 days of rugby, to be perfectly honest with you. But yeah, half time, 12-3 to Saracens. It wasn't. Going by Twitter, it wasn't looking so good, was it, at half-time?
It was very laboured, and we just, every time we got into a decent position, we just blew it one way or another. There was a couple of passes that could and should have been made, and people got a little bit of a white line fever, I think, and the chance was gone. Rotty was Rotty. Every time we gave him the ball, he scored. So why we didn't give him the ball more, I don't know. To be fair, he didn't see much of it in the second half because everything seemed to come down the other side or through the middle. But at half time it was laboured, but we did sort ourselves out second half, and it turned in a much better performance in the second 40 than we had in the first one.
Well, I suppose, the issue there is, it was a dead rubber, wasn't it? There wasn't a great deal on the game, so you'd hope that perhaps the first half was a case of trying to do some things in a game situation that will be used when things get a little bit more serious, maybe. And, if they're trying things, they don't come off, well, I suppose the best you can do is improve second half and those things do come off, which it does seem to have happened. Suddenly put, was it 60 points on in the second half almost?
56, wasn't it? It was 68-10 in the end. Credit to Hartpury. We said this before, and it's almost a damning with faint praise, but they never gave up. They kept trying. They kept trying to run from deep as well. They were obviously determined not to kick the ball back to us as much as they possibly could. So they deserve credit for sticking at it, but it was a little bit one-sided in the second half.
I hate that phrase, Barry. I remember playing games where you came off and you had an absolute thumping, and then one of the opposition would say to you, "Well, stuck at it," and all you wanted to do was stick one on them because for being patronising. You realise you look an absolute dick for doing it, and it's like you have to swallow that one up. It's one of those phrases in rugby I hate more than anything else.
Well, it is better than they clearly gave up at half time and didn't bother coming out for the second half. So, yeah, they did keep trying to play. They didn't see an awful lot of the ball in the second half. The one chance they got in the second half, which was as a result of Saracens' mistake, they pounced on and finished quite nicely. I can't really remember them having too much more of the ball in the second half, to be honest.
No, well, I mean, that's the thing. The important question, I suppose, from the previous week previous weeks we discussed, line out had gone awry. Did the line out look better on the weekend, Barry?
It did. I didn't see the first two games, so I haven't really got an awful lot to compare it with. But it certainly, I think the main facets of the game worked well. Obviously, Alex Lazowski won the man of the match, the official one, but there was half a dozen candidates really, including, I've got to say, Samson Ajimi, who is an absolute beast, and he has got to be the quickest hooker I've ever seen in my life, because when he gets going, my word, is he fast? He really is. He really is rapid, and he's an aggressive runner with the ball as well. And if he carries on at the rate that he's going, he's going to be the next big thing that we're talking about, I think.
Well, it's interesting because obviously we've got Theo Dan away with England along with Jamie George, and I mean, I'm loath to write Jamie George off, obviously, but he's coming towards the end of his career. It would seem, Theo Dan is an explosive, quick, a flanker playing at hooker almost, and it seems Samson is very much of that mould. So obviously there's a recruitment around the style of play that you want to play, that you want explosive, quick hookers who can, potentially play in the back row if need be. Looking at an awful lot of players being multifaceted. You're not, get your basics right. Yeah, that's important. But, do we see the likes of KP and Wolfie perhaps coming down the ladder a little bit, maybe?
I think Wolfie will still have a big role to play this season. KP, I'm not too sure about. He's never really, I wouldn't say he's never really impressed me, because when he's been on it. But unfortunately, there's a couple of the fringe players who will give you one decent game and then several where you're not quite too sure. And there seems to be a longer period between the decent games and the ones that are less comfortable, shall we say? And I think KP could be going backwards in the pecking order this season. Looking at Samson, I think he will definitely get some game time when people are away, and if we pick up another injury or so there, I think he'll be rapidly firing up the ladder.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's great to see that young players taking their opportunities with both hands. I mean, we mentioned Rotimi Shegan, who has impressed in all the games he's played. I mean, out of the other youngsters that were on the field, Barry, on the weekend, who really caught the eye for you?
I think probably Josh Hallett, and I'm going to give a special mention to Toby Knight as well, who bagged himself a couple of tries in the second half. They both of them carried the ball with menace. Josh Hallett does cut some very, very good lines as well at times. He certainly knows. His understanding of the game seems to be coming on in spades, and I think he will get some good game time this season. Toby, maybe not so much game time this season, but he's certainly again one for the future. There was a lot of decent performances all over the pitch, really, and yeah, it was good. I mean, you can only beat what's in front of you, and obviously Hartpury have struggled a bit in the Premiership Cup this year. It's a shame we're only finishing where we are in the table and not really having had much to challenge for, having blown the first couple of the first three games, wasn't it, really? Or two out of the three, rather. So yeah, it's a shame, but I think we'll move on to the serious stuff on Saturday.
Well, indeed, and I mean, it does go back to the interview we did with Dan Vickers, where he was talking more about performances and perhaps more about individual performances, getting ready for the season proper, as you put it, starting off. And we'll talk about that in the third part. But we'll have a small break now, and then we'll come back and we'll run the rule over the World Cup, if that's okay with you guys.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
You are listening to the Fezcast, which is proudly sponsored by the Saracen Supporters Association, and I'm Alison Davis, one of the SSA committee. For a £10 annual subscription, the SSA provides our members with monthly newsletters, virtual and in-person player events, away match ticket allocations, and we organise pre-match gatherings at away matches. We sponsor men's and women's players, and we support the Saracens Foundation Track Club on behalf of our members. On top of all that, every year we have a seasonal SSA badge, which is exclusive to members. Where else can you get that much value for a tenner? Join now at membermojo.co.uk/SSA, or come and see us on match day in the Oasis at the Stonex.
This is the Fezcast.
Well, Barry, on Sunday night, I saw a tweet and I reposted it myself on Facebook and I reposted it on Twitter. And it was something along the lines of Portugal finally get their win at the Rugby World Cup. Fiji qualify for the quarterfinals. Eddie Jones goes home. And it said, Alexa, play Everyone's a Winner by Hot Chocolate. And I have to say, that has been, in a weekend of highlights in the World Cup, that has been, without doubt, the biggest highlight. The fact that at one point, Eddie Jones has probably running around the Aussie lad saying, oh, best not have another beer, guys. We might yet be playing England. For it to be dashed away from it like that. It made me laugh an awful lot, Barry.
Yeah, at one point on the ITV coverage, they put the table up as it stands, and they actually had Australia in second. And I thought, hang on a minute, that's not wrong. That's not right, rather. And they never referred to it again. And then just 5 minutes later, put the table up with Fiji in second because they were still only losing by not by enough points to get Australia through. Yeah, it was a great game Sunday. It was two good games Sunday, actually, because the Argentina-Japan game was quite enjoyable as well.
Well, indeed. I mean, we'll have a quick talk about that one. I mean, Argentina eventually came out on top, but Japan for a long period of time were keeping them honest and, two teams fully prepared to attack and, seeing second rows chipping down the wing and then running in a try like that. I mean, he got into my team of the week purely on the basis of that. I mean, second rows shouldn't be able to do that sort of stuff. We all lost our marbles when Zinzanbrook dropped a goal in the 95 semi-final against England from the halfway line. You certainly see second rows doing skills like that. I mean, the world's gone mad, hasn't it, Barry?
Yeah, as we said in the first part, multi-talented players are the way forward. I mean, we've got some at Saracens ourselves. I mean, let's not mention the skillful beast in his kick through last season. I mean, what a great bit of play that was.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was. And I mean, as I said previously, it was a weekend of amazing skills all around. I mean, you had the French just playing, jouer. It was wonderful. Yeah, and you've got to take into account who they're playing, but they were playing Italy. And I mean, Italy, you are, let's be honest about it. I worry about Marco coming back because their confidence is going to be shorn completely from them. To the extent that when Kieran Crowley takes off his skipper, who I think, Michele Lamaro probably went off, found the leaving collection for Kieran Crowley and took the €100 note out that he'd have put in beforehand. But, the French were just doing stuff on that field that is just, sublime. And it started off with Damian McKenzie for New Zealand. I mean, that run down the sidelines, the kick, and then the one-handed pass inside to Will Jordan, as he's going into row D of the stands. I mean, it was just... There were an awful lot of outstanding skills on show this weekend.
Certainly, if World Rugby ever let one out, the highlights reel for this weekend is going to be about half an hour long, I think.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the one highlights I did see someone on Twitter had posted the film from Portuguese TV of Portugal winning and the Portuguese commentators. It was absolutely joyous hearing, and that's fantastic. That, it needs a team like Fiji to get to the quarterfinals. That's been great for the game, but it also needed one of these. I'm not going to say tier 2 nations because they're not. I don't like this idea of that Tier 1 nations are only Tier 1 nations because they get an awful lot more money and an awful lot more exposure and an awful lot bigger games. It's the only difference. You give a team like Portugal, who were extremely well coached by the Bayonne Express, and I mean, as a player, I enjoyed watching back in the day, but, as a coach, he's done brilliantly, making well Coach of the Year. But, they came out, they played with a joy, with no fear. That's the thing. I said this to Dan Vickers when I interviewed Dan. You want players that when they get the ball in their hand will do something. It might not work, but I don't care. Just do it and learn from it if it doesn't work. And that's what Portugal have done all tournament, isn't it, Barry?
Yeah, absolutely. I've only seen a couple of their games because of various bits and pieces of being away with my other hobby. But it's been they've been a joy to watch. A lot of the so-called lesser games, or the games involving lesser nations, particularly when it's not one of them being thumped by New Zealand or whatever, they've been far more enjoyable games than some of the bigger ones.
Well, indeed, and before we move on to England, who actually have. Yeah, England have been disappointing, it has to be said. But before we move on to that, I mentioned Italy. The other team to mention is Scotland, who have both really, really disappointed me. Now, Scotland in particular are going to complain and say, well, the draw was done X amount of time ago. It was ridiculous. You now got the top 3 of the top 5 sides in the group. Well, I'm sorry, but you've got to beat the best in the world at some point during a World Cup to win a World Cup. And Scotland had 2 opportunities to play teams better than them and get a scalp. They should have been targeting those games and saying, look, we need to beat either South Africa or Ireland. Yeah, okay, it might be a crappy hand we've been drawn, but we've got to beat one of those teams. And in those 2 games, they never landed a glove on either team. Against Scotland, they did eventually, but against Ireland, they did eventually. But that's because, half the team had been subbed off and they had a scrum half on the wing and they had a centre on the wing. And, it was, Johnny Sexton had gone off and whatever. I mean, Ireland had won the game at half time and Scotland hadn't even fired a shot.
Yeah, Ireland were just, to be fair, Ireland was simply too good for them on the day. There was a period when Scotland had multiple phases, like 10, 12, 15, whatever it was, around about 10 minutes into the game. And Ireland just kept them at arm's length. They had lots of phases. They kept recycling it. They kept hold of it. And you could see what was going to happen. Eventually, Ireland were going to pounce. They were going to get a chance for a turnover, or there was going to be a penalty. I think it ended in a penalty. But they literally, they went side to side, backwards, forwards, and they got no yardage gain whatsoever. Ireland just kept them at arm's length. They knew exactly what they were doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And Scotland, you look at it, I mean, I have been always, not say critical of Finn Russell, because I think Finn Russell on his day is mercurial. He can be amazing. He can do things that no other stand-up in the world can do. But it's so rare that he does it. And when he gets into a big game, when the bigger boys are playing against him, he goes missing. Or what he did on the weekend was he decided that he was going to spend more time chatting to the ref about what he wasn't giving him, as opposed to getting on and doing it. And all that happened there was that every time that Finn Russell got the ball, he immediately passed it on to somebody else to do something with it, until Ireland's weaken their side through substitutions, whatever, and then he suddenly decided, I'll show off a bit here. It's like a boxer who spends 2.5 minutes of a 3-minute round running around avoiding punches, only to throw a flurry in the last 10 seconds to impress the judges almost.
Yeah, or hoping that the scorecards only filled in at the end, I guess. But it was a shame that Scotland couldn't put up a better account of themselves. But you're right, Finn Russell is a great player to watch on his day, and when he's on song. One word of advice to Scotland would be, just imagine you're playing England every week, because they certainly don't seem to have any trouble getting it up when they're playing England, that's for sure.
Well, absolutely, and I've always said this, the point that Scotland just see England as another game on the same level as playing Wales or Ireland or France or whatever, the better Scotland will be. They just can't back up performances. However, before we move on to England and Samoa and a heavy Saracens kind of influence there, I do want to mention one player, and I did tweet at Saracens about this when I watched Romania-Tonga. And the fullback, Simonescu, for Romania, I see an awful lot of Alex Good in him. And, you know, Goody's coming up to the end of his career at some point. It's going to happen at some point. You know, it might be when he's 47, but, you know, Nick Kennedy, have a look at that lad Simonescu. I saw an awful lot of Alex Good in him in a very good way. Fine player in a team that was quite well beaten throughout the tournament.
If you saw a lot of Alex Good in him, wait till you see Tom Parton. He even dresses the same.
Out on the lash in the full kit stuff afterwards. Even
no, he's got the white undershirt on underneath his black. People were looking at the 15 on Saturday, going, "How's Alex Good playing two positions?" Oh no, that's not Alex Good. That's Tom Parton.
When I grow up, I want to be Alex Good. But yeah, let's move on to England Samoa. And the first thing to say, a player that I have pumped an awful lot, and a lot of people are pumping him quite rightly, Magic Theo McFarland. Now, the first thing I say, and I did tweet this during the game, I really hope, knowing it won't happen, that Theo gets refereed as leniently for Saracens as he did for Samoa, because he should have had a yellow card first 5 minutes when we got that rolling maul going, and he cynically and clinically dragged it to the ground over the top of him. That was a yellow card straight off. And then I think, you know, he was appearing underneath eyeballs primarily because he got about a 15-metre head start on everybody else, and he wasn't picked up once. And some of the work at the breakdown was very nefarious. Yeah. Referees, if he's got a cloak of, if he's got Josh van der Vlier's trademark cloak of invisibility, let's hope he continues to wear it when he plays for Saracens, Barry.
Yeah, absolutely. That will definitely be handy. I didn't actually see the first half of that because I was still driving back from the Stonex. But yeah, it was. Where do we start with England? Where do we start? I suppose the best English performance of the weekend was Luke Pearce in Sunday's match.
Yeah, well, absolutely, he did very well there, didn't he? But no, I mean, let's leave the backs and the big one to the end. I mean, although to say that a lot of people are throwing an awful lot of criticism towards the backs that they didn't spark. The reason the backs didn't spark was that Alex Mitchell was not giving them good ball. And the reason Alex Mitchell was not giving them good ball was because the pack were beaten up. I think the only pack member who could come out with any credit at all was Ben Earl. And Ben's had a superb tournament, and great news that he signed a new deal with Saracens as well. That's fantastic news. But everybody else in that pack, Ollie Chesham had a pretty good game. Maro Toji, you can't fault his effort, but, you know, I felt Courtney Laws was not at the races. Dan Coles was not at the races. Jamie didn't have his best game. Ellis Genge had one of those games where I think he suddenly thought he needed to take the entire pack, Samoan pack on his own, and it just didn't work. And Tom Curry showed that he was rusty after a period of time out. You know, he's played 3 minutes of rugby in this tournament so far. Billy came on, did a good job. George Martin came on, did a good job. We got parity in the second half in the pack, which then meant that we were able to release backs when Owen went to 10 and Smith came on at full-back and Ollie Lawrence came on, made a huge difference. But, yeah, that pack, you know, and against Fiji's pack has been, other than against Portugal, has been impressive. That's the big concern. We need to work that out quick, Barry.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a combination of, obviously we played Chile a couple of weeks ago, then we had a rest week, and you know, across both the Japan and the Chile games there's been certain rotations, and I just wonder if the players had just got out of the groove a little bit, and that was maybe the game that they needed. I'm certainly hoping so for this weekend, but yeah, it was hard to find it was hard to find anything to be pleased about other than the result, which was a little bit harsh on Samoa. Thank you. Sorry, I had an argument with someone on Twitter about Western Samoa, and I can't get the name out of my head. Yeah, it was a harsh result on them. It felt.
Yeah, I did. I mean, Samoa really. This is the annoying thing again, though. I mean, and this is the thing that happens when you're an England rugby, England rugby at whatever level, whether you're support, whether you're a player, whether you're a coach, whatever. Teams get up for England in a way that they don't get up for anybody else. And we understand that happens in football, it happens in cricket, it happens in all sorts of sports. The old colonial oppressor, I've even had that thrown at me on Twitter today when they were talking about it. But England's are seen as the one that everybody wants to knock down, and it's to the extent that people are now turning around saying, come on, Fiji, it's the result that World Rugby want. And yeah, we are like the Millwall of World Rugby almost, aren't we? Nobody likes us, but we should be able to use that to our benefit. And I think what impressed me most about England, and there were enough there to impress me. One, Borthwick made a decision and dragged off George Ford. And, George Ford, other than Argentina, where he kicked 3 great drop goals, but it was against an Argentina that just didn't turn up. He's had a very average tournament. Now, I don't know if you remember the film Mike Bassett, England manager. Ricky Tomlinson, he does that press conference, doesn't he? And they've been all talking about their Christmas pudding, whatever it was and everything. And he does the whole Rudyard Kipling if, and, and all of that. And at the end of it, he just goes, and England will play 4-4 effing 2. Well, I want Steve Borthwick to do the same on whenever he announces a team, and to go through it and to say everything and say, and Owen Farrell plays effing 10, because that's what England need. George Ford plays at 10, you don't pick Owen Farrell. Marcus Smith plays at 10, you don't pick Owen Farrell or George Ford. Owen Farrell plays at 10, you don't pick George Ford or Marcus Smith to start the game. And if it's me, you pick Owen Farrell at 10 because he's your captain and he's your best 10, and you put Marcus Smith on the bench, and you give George Ford a tackle bag. And you've got to do that. And now is the point. You've got 3 games potentially to win a World Cup, to save, or we've got 1 game in which to save England's reputation almost. You pick your best players, you turn around to your pack and say, give that boy good ball. And you have Ollie Lawrence running off of his shoulder. You've got Elliot Daly at 13 outside him. And England will beat Fiji. But they've got to just discount everybody else, apart from me, commentating on this, and pick Owen Farrell at 10. Bang.
Yeah, we've got to start picking the best players in their natural positions, not trying to shoehorn them in to a slightly different position because we think they're good enough, but not quite good enough in their real position. It was a major failing of Eddie Jones, and he got away with it for years simply with the results he was getting. But putting square pegs into round holes just doesn't work. Here's a question for you, though, Jez. If we were to go on and beat Fiji and make the semi-final and then disappear out at that stage, does that constitute a successful World Cup for England?
Yes, 100%. I think it does. For the simple reason that everybody expected us to be going home the group stages. It's exactly the same situation as Wales find themselves in. Wales, I actually think, have really played above themselves. And, you look at France, you look at Ireland, you expect them to do what they've done. And as much as Scotland have been disappointing, and this really does stick in my craw, Warren Gatland's come back and worked wonders with Wales. And I think that Steve Borthwick needs to take a leaf out of Gatland's, he's a wily old fox, Gatland. He's seen it, he's done it, he's been there. And he is not afraid to make some really, really tough decisions and make them he does. You look at Alan Wynne-Jones, you would have thought would have been at that World Cup. But he's turned around to him and said, no, sorry, AWJ, I've had loyalty, but I now know. Rhys Carey was another one, wasn't he? He was told he was too overweight. Everybody criticised Warren Gatland at that point, but I think he's got it right because He's got players who are the fittest players in the World Cup. And Steve Borthwick needs to take a leaf out of that book and be his own man and say, you know, this is my team and this is what I'm playing.
Yeah, I think, it's... You're right about Gatland. I mean, he's been around the block enough to know what he's doing and to almost have the attitude of, well, do you know what? If you want me to be the coach, I'll be the coach, but you let me get on with it my way. And you do wonder with Steve if he's just trying to please too many people in the background. And I don't know. He doesn't seem to be quite picking the right side at the moment or getting the tactics right. And it's hard to see. The toughest thing for me is it's hard to see a progression from one game to the other. We could be brilliant for half a game and then rubbish for, you know, the next game and a half, and then sort of go backwards again in the next game and then have another little step forward. And it just seems hard to see any great progression and any great building process going on.
Yeah, I entirely see. I mean, I think what I said before this World Cup, and I think this is what Borthwick has done right, is that he hasn't gone wholesale changes. Wales have done that, and although they've, you know, you've got your Talupe Faletau, it's really sad to see him out now with a broken arm. But you know, you've got your experienced players in there, your George North, your Dan Biggers, your 100-cap men, your Liam Williams, whatever. But he's just turned around and gone, right, okay, we're not expected to do nothing. Let's allow some of these kids who perhaps should have had a few more caps by now, let's give them their opportunities. England have done it another way and have turned around and say, look, you know, there's every chance that we could get absolutely mullered in this World Cup, be embarrassed, go out in the group stages. I'm not going to expose young players who are going to be there in 4 years' time to that confidence blasting. Now, whether that's the right attitude to take, I don't know. But he has certainly protected an awful lot of players that I expect to see come in to the squad. He likes a Finn Smith at Northampton Saints. He likes a Charlie Atkinson. Harry Arundel, even though he's out there, hasn't been used over there and against Chile. You know, that's good because he's given Harry Arundel experience. You fully expect Harry Arundel to be the winger for the next 10 years, or should do, depending on what happens with his playing in France, whatever. But he hasn't turned around. I think he's been frightened that if he put too many youngsters in, they'd get obliterated, and it'd be like the Matthew Tate kind of situation where, you know, he come through as this 18-year-old and then never realised his potential. And I think that's what Borthwick has done well. You know, and Owen Farrell, we might as well get on to him. Owen Farrell has taken shit throughout his career, excuse my French, everybody, but he has. Some of it deservedly so, a lot of it not deservedly so. Hell, Spells, the bloke's the leading point scorer for England now, and that's legendary what he's done there. You watched when Johnny Wilkinson got 1,200 points for England, everybody went, well, that'll never get broken, and now Owen Farrell's come along and broken it. You know, but he's a sort of player, you know, he doesn't look at social medias. You know he does. You know, he just gets on. He's single-minded. He's determined. He does what he does. And perhaps that's what England needs in this World Cup.
Faz has been an interesting one, and obviously we'll get on to the incident, as we'll call it, shortly. But yeah, it's great that he's got that record. You're right. Well, I remember when Johnny broke it, people were saying, "Well, that'll stand forever," and it's not stood that long at all, really, in the great scheme of things. And perhaps Faz's record won't. I mean, it's quite possible someone else will come out and beat it if they can match his length of service, as it were, because obviously he's been an international now for 12 years, something like that. I can't remember now. Which is a hell of a run in the side, and been captain for a good period of that time as well. So he definitely doesn't owe England anything. But we have to mention the timeout.
Well, we do, and I mean, I know at the time you WhatsApped us and went embarrassing, and to an extent it was. But actually, when you sit back and look at it in the cold, harsh reality of the day, it didn't cost England. It could have cost England. It didn't cost us at the end of the day. And yeah, okay, he's timed out. it's a mistake. It's a small mistake. It's no different than, Ben Kay in the World Cup final in 2003 with a line begging in front of him, dropping the ball when it was easier to score a try, for argument's sake. That's just one example off the top of my head. It's not a given that when he stands there with that ball on the tee, that he'll slot it anyway. The fact is he did slot it and it's 3 points off. But, he's a player who obviously gets himself set up, and he got himself set up slightly wrong, and he hadn't gone through his processes, which, in my day, it was a case of it would take you 60 seconds to build a sand tower to prop your ball on anyway. But, and then you were kicking something like 20 pounds of wet haggis. But, he got that slightly wrong. It won't happen again. And if nothing else, he becomes a quiz question in 10 years' time, doesn't he? Who was the first player to be timed out on a kick in the World Cup?
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I will say in his defence, in other games, you've seen a clock or a scoreboard behind the posts, and that's got the clock counting down with the shot clock on it. That wasn't in the stadium on Saturday, so I wonder if there's actually a clock that he can see, and it's probably a point that going forward, perhaps it's one for the authorities to think about. There should be behind the posts a countdown clock so that the kicker has got no excuses for not quite realising whether the clock's running or whether it's been stopped. And I think I suspect he genuinely didn't realise he was running out of time. He probably didn't realise the clock was running quite as early as it was. And I think in fairness to me, my embarrassing was more about the entire team's performance than just that. But yes, it was one that made you go and hide behind the sofa when it happened.
Well, it wasn't. I mean, and again, he didn't mean to do that. No. No player means to knock the ball on. No player means to mistime a tackle and go high. No player means to collapse in a scrum. You all go out there to do your best job. And let's be honest about it, he's done that best job 1,200 points worth of times. So, the dog zone abuse he's getting is unwarranted. And it's a case of, I have no problem if it's Scottish fans going and taking the mickey and having a bit of banter, or Welsh fans or Kiwi fans. I haven't got any issues with that, because let's be honest about it, we'll do the same to them. I'll turn around and tell them that Finn Russell is a flat track bully who doesn't like it when the big boys turn up, as I already have done. But it's when England fans are giving him that abuse. That's wrong. Absolutely 100% wrong. And really, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, England's performances, that there's a group of people led, it seems, by Matt Dawson, who should know better, given his history as an England rugby player, that, they're at the World Cup now. Afterwards, if they haven't performed, do a debrief, whatever. But when they pull on that shirt, and they play for all of us, and they play better for all of us when all of us are behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. I read Dawson's column on the BBC website on Monday, and it was a strange thing. I mean, he was just short of blaming Farrell for everything, but not by much.
No, you just don't understand it. I mean, and you'll never, as I said, Courtney Laws didn't have his best game for England. I guarantee you, Matt Dawson never mentioned that, because he's a Northampton Saints. I mean, he is so one-eyed and he's biased. He obviously thinks that Courtney Laws should be England captain, and that clouds everything he talks about.
Yeah, absolutely. He's up there with Lawrence when it comes to a one-eyed view, particularly on Saracens for some strange reason, but. There we go. You can only deal with what you can. I expect Faz will get picked at the weekend, and I expect he'll play a better game, and I expect all of England players will play a better game this coming Saturday than they did last Saturday, or this coming Sunday, I should say, than last Saturday. Or at least let's hope so.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely. Well, look, we've done the World Cup. Let's have a quick break, and then we'll come back and just talk briefly about Exeter Chiefs, and also what I've got coming up on this weekend.
Okay.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Hi, Alex Osterbury here, Director of Rugby for Saracens Women. You're listening to the Saracens Fezcast.
This is the Fezcast.
Well, welcome back to the last part. And yeah, we're just going to do a brief preview and perhaps a prediction of what's going to happen as we go away to start the season down at Sandy Park in Exeter, Tony Rose Ground. And, you know, I don't see us going in there with any great expectations, Barry, to be perfectly honest with you. And we've said that in the past, and we've been proven wrong in the past, and I hope that we're proven wrong again. But Exeter Chiefs haven't been affected as badly as a lot of clubs with international call-ups. You know, you've got the likes of Henry Slade who've been playing the Premiership Cup, which is shown by Chiefs qualifying for semi-finals and everything. They're going to have a very strong side out with a determination to put one over on the champions, and we're going there. You know, I don't know whether Theo McFarlane's back in the country, and I said it last week on the show. If he is, I would be tempted to ask him to go straight back into the squad, but I very much doubt he will. But yeah, we're going down there with a almost full 15 unavailable because they're over in France, where Exeter Chiefs players don't get selected.
We could make a very good side out of the players that aren't available for us this weekend. I was having a look at the Exeter lineup for their obviously that they got their pants pulled down a little bit by Bath at the weekend in the Premiership Rugby Cup. Slightly surprisingly, because they did have quite a strong side out, although there was a few names there that I'm not overly familiar with, because obviously they've had a big churn of players as well. But you've got to make them favourites at their ground, playing their style of rugby, and with a more settled side that's had a good old run up at this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, look, all we can hope from Saracens is that they go down there, they give a good account of themselves, they show what they've learned from the Premiership Cup games. That there's a lot of players there who perhaps, were it not for the World Cup, are going to get an opportunity, and we want to see them grasp that opportunity with both hands to make it difficult for Smalley when the superstars come back and are available. You know, I want players to stand up and say, I'm sorry, you know, even Owen Farrell's got to earn his place back in this side. Maro Itoje's got to earn his place back in this side. Jamie George has got to earn his place back in this side. You know, that's what I want to see from the guys. And, you know, if you get a result out of it, we get a result out of it. But, yeah, I definitely want to see some players now look at this as an opportunity and grasp that opportunity with both hands, Barry.
Well, they certainly should, because they you know, it's all about taking your chances in life and in the game itself as well, of course. But let's go out there. Let's, as you say, give Smalley something to think about and say, you know, players shouldn't be automatic selections when they come back. I think Faz might be all right though, because I suspect he'll play Goody at 10 again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there you go. Look, Barry, before we go, I need to do a quick plug for what I've got coming up this weekend, because, again, I won't be around to watch rugby live. I am going to be up in York. On Sunday, I shall be running the Yorkshire Marathon round York and the surrounding villages and the A64 and whatever. Hopefully, I've been training to try and get under 5 hours. That's my plan. That's my target. But, you know, as close to that as I possibly can get. But obviously, I'm running for the Motor Neurone Disease Association. So if anybody out there in Fezcast land would like to sponsor me, please visit justgiving.com/fundraising/Jezza, JEZZA-Denton, DENTON. And any amount of money would be gratefully received and appreciated in the work that is being done against motor neurone disease. And indeed, you're going to see Kenny Logan and his Merry Bends and Ali McCoyson and Joe Nesbitt being interviewed before the Scotland game. I think they've been on the Beaujolais after 700 miles. It was quite fun. But yeah, a lot of work being done for motor neurone. Obviously, Doddy Weir and everything like that as well, and Ed Slater at Gloucester. So yeah, please, if you can give some money, do go and visit my website.
Yeah, hopefully you'll make more sense than those two did on television on the weekend. At one point, I was looking for the subtitles button.
Well, I'll be honest with you. If you interview me in the immediate aftermath of the marathon, no, you won't. And then 2 hours later, because I haven't had a drink for 2 months now, and I shall be clattering into the beers in the same way as Ali and Jimmy did. So yeah, but we've got a big interview next week. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but I'm recording that this week for next week's show. But that'll be all you hear from me on next week's show is me with Floyd. Oh my lord! There you go. I was going to keep it a surprise, and but yeah, I'm chatting to Floyd Steadman this week, so that's the big interview next week, which will be going out on the 18th. So do tune in for that, and Matt will be with whoever is available to talk through the Exeter Chiefs game and the World Cup, obviously, and hopefully victories for Saracens in England in those games.
Yeah, that would certainly be good. I reckon you could have got away with saying it might be Merryweather, but apart from that, I'm struggling to think of another, Floyd.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that anyway. So anyway, well, thank you everybody for listening in. I hope you've enjoyed our little ranting and raving and discussions there about all things rugby, Saracens and the wider world. And we'll say thanks for now, all the best, and ta-ra.
See ya.
This is the Fezcast.